Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, what's real and what's not through a disappointing 2-2 start to the season for the Wolves. Is it fair to be placing blame on Chris Finch already? We'll talk about the defensive issues. We'll talk about the rotation solutions and potential, really non-solutions. We'll break down the first week plus of the season and what's real, what's not coming up next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Hump Day and happy Timberwolves game day. The Wolves take on the Luka-less and LeBron-less Lakers tonight. A game that the Wolves are favored in, and even without Anthony Edwards, should be able to win this game. We'll talk about issues. Really, I want to spend most of today's show talking about what's real and what's not over the first 4 games, just over a week into the season at this point, or I guess exactly a week into the season for the Wolves, and talk about are we there should be no fire alarms to be pulled through 4 games, but where are we getting close, right? Where I'm not going to do a gimmicky, panic meter type thing, but what's real and what's not here. What about the defensive issues? What are potential solutions on the roster? What are levers that Chris Finch could pull or maybe should pull or has pulled and shouldn't be pulling? We're going to evaluate his performance to this point. There's a lot of online discourse about Chris Finch, and I'm going to get sucked in a little bit on that. And then we'll talk about some the real numbers from Synergy, from Clean the Glass, what's working, what's not through 4 games, admittedly small sample size. We'll talk a little bit at the end today about the Lakers-Wolves preview. I think I'll save some of the looking ahead in terms of the schedule minus Anthony Edwards over the next at least week and a half. We'll do that probably on tomorrow's show. So a lot to get to here today. A big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. All right. So what's real and what's not? Obviously, we can't just take the stats and be like, this is for sure real, this is for sure not. We're 4 games in. Anything can happen in one game. Anything can happen over the course of 4. But it doesn't change what has already happened. So we can look and see, the Wolves have been a bad defensive team. They've been a slightly above average offensive team. That's factual. It doesn't mean they're going to be a bad defensive team all year. It doesn't mean they're going to be an average offensive team all year. But what have we seen so far? And then peeking ahead, what does it tell us about what is possible or maybe even likely or unlikely to happen? So we can start with the defense, right? That's the biggest problem right now. According to Cleaning the Glass, Minnesota has the 28th ranked defense in the league through 4 games. Now, this is, some teams have only played 3. I think nobody's played more than 4. Yeah, everybody's played either 3 or 4 games as of this recording. I'm recording this actually before Tuesday night's game, so this might shift slightly. But everybody's played 3 or 4 games. So similar sample. Minnesota's 28th in points per 100 possessions on Cleaning the Glass. That's brutal, right? They were 6th last year. They were easily number 1 the year before that. Doesn't mean they're going to be 28th all season, but right now they're 28th. They're bottom 10 in all of the 4 factors: opponent's effective field goal percentage, opponent turnover rate, opponent offensive rebound rate / their own defensive rebound rate, similar statistics, and then opponent free throw rate. They're bottom 10 in all of those. Interestingly, they're not worse than 23rd in any of those 4 factors, but yet they're 28th in defense. There's a couple of things that play into that. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but my theory is, first of all, there's a little bit of flukiness, and also transition opportunities. They've allowed too many transition opportunities, and the free throw rate thing, I think, has had an outsized impact. Yes, they're 23rd in the league, but in the games in which they've given up those free throws, it's really, really hurt them. Those additional, the defending without fouling thing has been a major problem to this point. And I would actually argue that's, there's 3 major issues on defense, right? That's one. Defending without fouling. Again, 23rd in the league in opponent free throw rate. It's a real problem. And Anthony Edwards is out now for at least, the next week and a half, if not more. Ant is actually we talked about this on yesterday's show. He's a plus perimeter defender more often than not, and he doesn't foul very often. He's a really, really good defender that doesn't foul. So by removing Anthony Edwards from the equation and playing guys that are more foul prone, and Jalen Clark didn't play on Monday, we'll talk more about that too. But Jalen Clark was actually fouled quite a bit on Sunday. I think he had 4 fouls in the game, if I'm not mistaken. and we know Jaden has problems with committing fouls. Like they're a fairly foul prone team overall, and you remove the best perimeter defender who is not foul prone, right? Like Jaden is foul prone. Jalen Clark is, and also didn't play on Monday. But taking Ant out of the equation hurts you even more in that regard. So that's been a major problem. The rebounding I'm less concerned about. So as far as what's real and what's not, I'm genuinely concerned about defending without fouling. I'm less worried about the rebounding. Now, I say that Minnesota has largely been an up and down rebounding team the last couple of years, even though they've netted out as a slightly above average defensive rebounding team. I mean, if you watch the Wolves regularly, you know that there's nights where they can't buy a defensive rebound. Opponent second chance points kill the Wolves. And that's what does them in some, handful of random losses over the course of a season. That's what happened last year. But then the rest of the time, they're pretty dominant on the defensive glass. The half-court defense is so good. They lock teams down. They get the defensive rebound, and they, ultimately it's leading to them winning a lot of games. Like, it's a big part of what they do. The defense is obviously. But it's those random games here and there where they're just atrocious on the defensive glass that have been problematic. But at the end of the day, they've been an above-average defensive rebounding team combined with just being a really good half-court defensive team. It hasn't been a major problem the last couple of years. You'd have to go back 3 years to find it really being an issue for Minnesota, which was year one of Rudy Gobert. I'm less concerned about it because of that track record of them figuring it out a little bit. It's not like they lost a major piece in the front court when it comes to rebounding. They didn't lose anybody that was a significant contributor on the glass. They do need a little bit more in terms of contributions from their guards and wings, crashing down and rebounding, especially on the defensive end of the floor. Like Jaden only had 3 rebounds in the loss on Monday to Denver, and that's got to be a bigger number for him, right? So there is some of that needs to get cleaned up a little bit. I'm not in the long run all that worried about it. The point of attack thing is interesting, and this is going to segue me into my next point, which is going to be about Chris Finch, the rotation, some of the online noise for what Chris Finch supposedly should be doing. The point of attack defense is actually not bad if you have Anthony Edwards and Jalen Clark. But if you don't, you can't survive the way the Minnesota played against Denver. Because now you're down to Jaden McDaniels, who's also been asked to do a lot more on the offensive end of the floor. And in a perfect world is a free safety defensively. We've talked about this a lot over the last couple of weeks on the show. The Timberwolves want to use Jaden McDaniels as a free safety, as a roamer. They want to use him as a help side rim defender. They want to use him as somebody who can, come and trap a player and use his long arms, athleticism to generate a steal or a deflection that can hopefully lead to a fast break the other way. But with no Ant and no Jalen Clark, who are your options? Right? Like your solution is not Rob Dillingham, right? Like you're not going to put Rob Dillingham in to guard the point of attack. Mike Conley is the other kind of default option, and I guess Dante DiVincenzo. First of all, Conley, I thought, looked worse defensively last year than offensively, and that hasn't gotten better. Like, he's not a very good on-ball defender anymore. He's still an okay team defender. He's obviously a smart player and has positive moments, but you're not relying on Mike Conley to guard the point of attack against, he's not guarding Jamal Murray in a perfect world, right? Or really, hopefully, in any world. Dante DiVincenzo has not been good defensively so far this year, and he was pretty spotty last year. I always thought he was a little bit overrated defensively, and we did see peaks and valleys last season. It's mostly been valleys through 4 games this season. So you don't have a whole lot of options, which means Jaden McDaniels, your next man up. Like, you're the guy. You're the perimeter defender here because we don't have Anthony Edwards and we don't have Jalen Clark. If those, and this is why this is a both, right? Like I'm less worried about the defensive rebounding. I am worried about defending without fouling, which is something that Minnesota is going to be prone to doing, especially without Anthony Edwards. I'm less worried about the point of attack defense as long as both, the 2 best point of attack defenders that they're trying to use this year, setting Jaden McDaniels aside because of the ideal scenario in which that's not his role anymore. I'm okay with it in the long run, even without Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And this is obviously where not having Nickeil hurts, because you would have had another plus perimeter defender. You could have used Nickeil, right? This is where it hurts the most. No Ant, no Jalen Clark. I think long-term, that's not a major concern. And I know Chris Finch talked post-game about the effort level on defense and the Minnesota just not having the right defensive mindset, which is clear. They're third worst defense in the league through the first week of the season. But how much of that is tied to their 2 best perimeter defenders, on-ball defenders right now, are not on the floor? And so a week from now, or call it 2 weeks from now, if Ant and Clark are back, and hopefully Clark's back as soon as, I mean, who knows? He could play Wednesday. I believe he's questionable right now. As long as those guys are back, I think they're fine, right? So the rebounding is less of a concern. The defending without fouling is always a concern for me with the Wolves. The point of attack defense is kind of in the middle. It just depends on the health of this team, but they have less depth in terms of perimeter defenders because TJ Shannon has not been good defensively to this point either. It doesn't mean he won't be. There's a lot of tools there to like the body type, right? The way that I think there's upside there for him defensively. But, and by the way, and I'll get into this here in a second, but like somebody like Josh Minot, not that like Chris Finch would have been like jumping off the bench to play him, but like that's another guy who like could have been a either played the Jaden role and let Jaden play the point of attack, or been on ball and let Jaden do what they want Jaden to do. And he's gone too. So they have lost a little bit of that depth, but generally speaking, they should have enough horses to do it if Ant and Clark are healthy. I want to talk a little bit about that piece. And like, is this a flip, a switch Chris Finch could flip right now? It's a tongue twister. A switch Chris Finch could flip, whether it's Rob Dillingham, Joan Beringer, is what is the move here? And can we point fingers at Chris Finch through 4 games for what he's done to this point? We'll do that. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the numbers thus far this season. We'll get into the Lakers preview. That's how we'll close out the show here today. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Quo. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system that you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer. So no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. I love how Quo lets the team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts, just like a shared inbox. So that way you don't have any customers that are left hanging. Plus, they have a built-in AI agent that is an absolute game changer. It can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you're off the clock. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Plus, if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our friends at Rippling. If you're a business owner, here is the truth. SaaS, software as a service, promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's SaaD, software as a disservice, and that's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. Everything that they do, from onboarding to payroll to IT access, runs automatically and can be perfectly in sync. It is seriously simple to use, gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything that they touch. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. Learn more at Rippling, RIPPLING.com/LockedOnNBA. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNBA for 6 months free. All right. So Chris Finch right now is getting catching a lot of flack, we'll call it, on X. And I normally wouldn't like stray here and be like, hey, let's talk about online discourse. Let's talk about X discourse. But it's a little out of control. And a couple things here. And I'm going to tie this directly to the point that I was just making in the last segment. We're 4 games in, first of all. So, like, I don't know. What is that? Less than 5% of the season. So relax. Everybody relax. I think it's appropriate to be concerned about the defense. And Chris Finch is too, right? Like Chris Finch is saying openly they need to be better on defense. I know people are getting angry about him saying Jaden needs to be better. But look, as we covered in the last segment, what do you want him to do? There's no Anthony Edwards. There's no Jalen Clark. who is supposed to be guarding Jamal Murray? Who's supposed to be guarding on the perimeter if those guys are out and Nickeil Alexander-Walker is in an Atlanta Hawks jersey and Josh Minott is in a Boston Celtics jersey? Like, what do you want him to do? Jaden McDaniels is the only other answer for guarding on the ball. Yeah, TJ Shannon should be better, but that's what Chris Finch is saying. Yeah, I mean, he didn't call him out individually, but like Dante's got to be better. Shannon's got to be better on the ball. Mike Conley's got to be better. But at some point, this is the hand Chris Finch has been dealt in terms of personnel. And I'm not at all saying that the Timberwolves don't have personnel that's good or good enough to get them to where they need to go in the finals and winning a championship. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying no Ant, no Jalen Clark. And with the changes from last year, this is the reality of what the team looks like right now. And I don't think schematically there's anything else. Shout JJ Redick for the word schematically. That there's anything else you're going to, I mean, obviously the opponent's it's going to depend on the opponent. Like there's only so much you can do with Jokic and Murray pick and rolls, right? Like when they face a Austin Reeves and nobody else Lakers team on Wednesday night, I mean, I think they'll be okay, right? Like I think Jaden guards Austin Reeves and shuts him down. And like, that's kind of the recipe, right? Like you don't worry too much about it, save for foul trouble, which, is a real thing that very well could happen. But no Jalen Clark, no Anthony Edwards hurts you less against a lot of other teams than it does against a team like the Denver Nuggets or, teams that have a bit more star power on the perimeter. So I don't have any problem with Chris Finch saying Rudy's got to protect the rim better and Jaden's got to protect better on the defend better on the perimeter. That's 100% true. What do you want from Chris Finch in this scenario? I'll tell you what, Rob Dillingham's not the answer. Minnesota's offense has been fine. Like, yeah, we can nitpick. We talked about how the shooting was only like about 30% from three. Like they've got to make open threes. They've been bad in transition. We can talk about that here in a second. But like Rob Dillingham himself isn't just like automatically the answer. We saw the Rob Dillingham roller coaster on Monday night. And I'm not saying he won't be ever. I'm not saying he shouldn't play. I'm not absolving Finch of choosing to not play him in the first 3 games of the season. I know he technically was out for game 3, but of course, conspiracy theories abound about that. At least he had a mask on his face on Monday, obviously, right? Like he genuinely was injured, right? I don't think like we could talk about the handling of Rob Dillingham overall on a more macro level, like giving him opportunities, but like, what do we want to say? The conference finals team from last year, and you don't just hand the guy a job. Like Rob Dillingham had opportunities last year and did not execute to the level that he needs to. I hope he gets more opportunities here sooner rather than later. And now is the time when you probably will need to generate some more offense. But the Denver game that wasn't the problem. Scored 65 points or something in the first half. Like that wasn't the problem. The problem was the point of attack defense. That was the problem. And Rob Dillingham's not solving that problem. I think we could make an argument for Joan Beringer minutes when Rudy Gobert is off the floor. That's been another major issue. I didn't really hit this in the first segment, but the defense with Rudy Gobert off the floor has been absolutely terrible. It was not good last year either. And I think long-term, that's the Beringer plan. Well, long-term, it's replacing Gobert, hopefully, in 3+ years. But at some point this year, maybe next year, the plan is like, hey, he's playing some backup minutes with Gobert off the floor to keep our defense at a level that's at least somewhere in the area code of what it is with Gobert on the floor. Because right now it's just a precipitous drop-off when Gobert leaves and sits on the bench. But they weren't going to put Beringer out there against Jokic and Valanciunas. That did not work in preseason. It's not going to work in the regular season, times 1,000, right? Like it wasn't a viable strategy. Could you do it against a smaller Lakers team? Yeah, probably. You look ahead and look at some games on the schedule. If the Wolves defense continues to be atrocious sans Gobert, then yeah, you're going to have to try that at some point. And I think that will be a fair criticism. Like if they don't do this thing in the next couple of weeks, if the defense is still terrible with Gobert off the floor and Beringer never leaves the pine, then yeah, let's complain about it. We're 4 games in, and Rob Dillingham's not solving the antless problem right now. He's not solving the point of attack problem. One of the things I am a little bit worried about is the transition offense. To this point, it's been very bad. And, I think, again, 4 games doesn't mean it's going to be bad all season. It is bad right now. To this point in the season, in transition, Minnesota has scored under 0.867 points per possession. And they're running with a little bit more frequency than they have traditionally under, or at least the last couple of years. We'll call it the Rudy Gobert era, not the Chris Finch era, because the Gobert-less Finch Wolves did run a bit more. But 0.867 points per possession in transition is miserable. I think it's the last in the league. That's been a problem, and that's according to Synergy. That's been an issue. I'm a little worried about it because, I mean, we're looking at guys that are going to be doing this thing all year, like Jaden McDaniels, TJ Shannon, Dante DiVincenzo. These are guys who that's their job. They have to be able to push pace. And I made the case after the game on Tuesday's show, the post-game pod following Monday's loss to the Nuggets, that, look, when the Wolves got to within a bucket, they got to within 3 points early in the fourth quarter. It was in large part because TJ Shannon was pushing the pace, had a couple of nice buckets in transition, and then they slowed down, and DiVincenzo shot a weird mid-range shot that missed, and then a couple of possessions later, Gobert gets the offensive foul trying to set a screen for Mike Conley, and like it just went downhill. But I think more transition opportunities are definitely a positive thing. And then eventually I do think it'll improve, but it's a little concerning that it's been so bad to this point. And sure, we could blame some coaching there, but that's more transition. These guys have been playing transition basketball since they were in junior high, elementary school, right? Like, so figuring out spacing, that's something that I guess it's so hard to, like, where are we assigning that blame? Because are they covering spacing in film sessions and in shoot around, in walkthroughs? They shouldn't have to, right? These guys have been playing basketball forever. Like, they shouldn't have to cover how to space the floor properly, how to have floor balance in transition, how to run to the corners, how to fill lanes and not clog, areas of the floor with bad spacing. That should be basketball 101. So I don't know that that's necessarily the coach's fault. Maybe it's for not holding them accountable. However you want to hold these guys accountable for not running the break, in a good way, in the correct way. Sure, fine. We can have that conversation if this continues. But I think right now it's an execution issue. There's some fluky bad luck in there still. But the transition offense certainly needs to improve a little bit. So to summarize, the defense has been the biggest problem. The offense has been okay. The defense is the biggest problem. The rebounding, I think, in the long term will be okay. I'm concerned about defending without fouling, and I'm concerned about the point of attack defense as long as Anthony Edwards and Jalen Clark are both out. But if one comes back, and hopefully Clark is back very soon, I'm much less concerned about it. I think they'll be okay. Against most opponents, you don't need more than 2 to 3 plus point of attack defenders. A lot of teams don't even have 1 or 2. And Minnesota, when healthy, has Ant, they have Clark, they have Jaden McDaniels, they have whatever you're going to get from TJ Shannon and Dante DiVincenzo, who are, I would say, each half of a point of attack defender, because I think there's upside. I think DiVincenzo, when he applies himself, can be very good, and there's upside with Shannon. I think that's a concern. Offensively, I'm more concerned about the transition than anything else, the transition offense. And I think that it's too early to be clamoring for Rob Dillingham, to be blaming Chris Finch for these things. Like, the man's been to consecutive conference finals and has not, since year one, is not like, he's not a losing coach. Teams are winning. Anthony Edwards is really good now. He wasn't really good 3 years ago, right? Like Chris Finch is a good coach, and I don't want to do that whole thing right now. We may have to come back to it later if things go a bit awry here early in the season. But I had to say all that stuff. I want to get to the Lakers preview for tonight's game. We'll just cover it a little bit. We'll peek ahead at the schedule and just kind of touch on, how important is this Lakers game, peeking ahead at the schedule for an Antless Wolves team. We'll do all that here next to close out the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. Whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors, this is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. Plus, this swivel screen is an absolute game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. Plus, the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each and every week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, Wolves-Lakers tonight. Of course, the Timberwolves lost the Lakers last Friday night, and that was the Luka goes bonkers game. Ant appeared to tweak his hamstring initially in that game, but obviously played the whole thing. Minnesota ends up losing by 18 as the Lakers really kind of, I don't say dominated. They led the whole way, essentially, really kind of pulled away late. However, since then, the Lakers have lost Luka Doncic for a shorter period of time, probably only about a week. And so he's not going to play Wednesday. We know that, right? He's out. They did beat the Kings by 7 and a bad Kings team, and then lost to the Blazers, the same Blazers team the Wolves beat by 14. I think Portland's better than people think. I also think the Lakers are, the Kings are maybe worse than people think. The Lakers only beat them by 7. Austin Reeves, of course, went nuts in each of those games. I mean, he's the one guy you got to worry about. Also, other guys that are out. Let's see. I lost my list here. There's a ton of guys that are out. Marcus Smart's hurt now too. He didn't play. I think he's listed officially as questionable for this game, but he missed the loss to the Trailblazers. So who knows on Marcus Smart? This is a suddenly very short-handed Lakers team. We know LeBron is still out with the sciatica issue. Let's see. What else do we got here? Luka Doncic is out. LeBron is out. We know those things. Maxi Kleber is still out. Marcus Smart did not play against Portland on Monday. Gabe Vincent did not play against Portland on Monday. This is a Lakers team that, like, Dalton Connect was a DNP-CD, or I guess he played late, I think, in blow-up minutes for the Lakers against the Wolves. He played 25 minutes off the bench. Bronny James played 20 rotation minutes for the Lakers. It did not go well. Played 20 minutes for them on whatever night it is that they lost to Portland at home by 14 points. They're starting now Jake LaRavia. They're starting Jared Vanderbilt. LaRavia was had a, like, just looking at the box score, had a minus 27 in 29 minutes. Nobody else was worse than a minus 13. He was a minus 27 in their loss to Portland. LaRavia was. So this is a Lakers team that Minnesota should be able to beat, right? No Luka, no LeBron, no Marcus Smart, no, like, if all these guys are truly out, it's a very winnable game, even for an antless Timberwolves team, right? Now, I should also say the Lakers are a bad defensive team, and if they don't have Marcus Smart, like, Minnesota should be able to completely have their way. In fact, right now on FanDuel, Minnesota's favored by 7.5 points at home against the Lakers on Wednesday, and this is with no Anthony Edwards. We don't know about Jalen Clark, and that's crazy. That line's even higher than I thought it would be. The keys for this game are going to be make somebody besides Austin Reeves beat you. I don't know who that would be. He had 41 in their game against Portland. They got 16 apiece from Rui Hachimura, DeAndre Ayton, and Dalton Connect. So I guess the second thing would be don't get into foul trouble. Jaden's got to stick around and be able to guard Austin Reeves without getting into foul trouble, especially if there's still no Jalen Clark. Otherwise, I like Jalen Clark to shut down Austin Reeves. I know he's not, like, Austin Reeves will have a size advantage, but Jalen Clark is strong, and he's stronger than Austin Reeves. And he's a smart defender. I think he can goad him into some stuff. I think he can get some offensive fouls. I think he can get him to play sloppy. He had 8 turnovers against the Blazers. So don't get into foul trouble. Guard the defensive, or I should say, the defensive glass. Don't allow the Lakers second chance opportunities. I mean, not that the Lakers are a great offensive rebounding team, but that's how a bad offensive team is going to create some of those higher variance moments and some opportunities to win. Ayton and Vanderbilt combined for 9 offensive rebounds against Portland in that loss the other night. So protect the glass, defend without fouling, shut down Austin Reeves, and make the Hachimuras and the Dalton Connects of the world beat you. That's going to be important. And then on the other side of the floor, the Lakers are already a bad defensive team, even without, like, actually they might actually be a little bit better defensively without some of these guys that are typically rotation guys for them. But Minnesota has to be able to knock down open 3-point shots. I mean, the Lakers are going to give up those opportunities. And Minnesota has to knock down open shots. Like, that sounds really simple, but, like, that's how you win this game fairly easily. The other thing is the Lakers are pretty good at defending without fouling. So I don't know how many opportunities Minnesota is going to get. The Lakers always win the free throw battle. Not surprisingly, LA is number 1 in free throw rate right now through 4 games, or actually number 2 in free throw rate. And they're top 3 in avoiding allowing opponents to get to the free throw line. So for whatever that's worth, it's worth a lot. Minnesota should be careful there, because that's another area that an inferior team, like a banged up Lakers team, even against an antless Wolves team, they can create some of that variance. The offensive rebounding, the free throw line. Minnesota's got to be careful there and not give back any advantages that they have. Just play a solid game, knock down open shots, guard the defensive glass, and they should be just fine overall. Okay, next up for the Wolves. They get a couple of days off before they head to Charlotte, and we already know Ant's not getting reevaluated until early next week. So Ant's going to miss the Lakers game. He's going to miss the Charlotte game. They play at Brooklyn on Monday. I guess Monday could be the day he's reevaluated, but I'd be shocked if he plays Monday, and it's pretty unlikely he plays at the Knicks next Wednesday. Okay, so he would miss that entire road trip. Home against the Lakers, 3 road games, Charlotte, Brooklyn, New York. Charlotte and Brooklyn should be 2 of the worst teams in the league. It hasn't fully played out that way yet. Like, Charlotte's been better than anybody expected. They're just 2-1, but the offense has been great. I thought they'd be better than their over-under win total. We're 3 games in. Everybody calm down again. But I think Charlotte is a decent team. Still a very winnable game, even sans Anthony Edwards. So at Charlotte, at Brooklyn, and we'll dig into this a bit more on tomorrow's show. At the Knicks will be extremely tough with or without Ant. And then perhaps next Friday back at home, nearly 2 weeks after the injury, would be a Utah at home for Utah, which again, they should be able to win without Ant, that one too. But like, I don't know. I think they shouldn't dictate, like the performance over the next week should not dictate how quickly Ant comes back. It's still so early this season, and Ant obviously is so obviously important that Minnesota will undoubtedly be more careful than not with Edwards here moving forward. Tomorrow's show will be the post-game pod. On Thursday, we'll talk all about Wolves-Lakers from Wednesday night, and then Friday's actually when we'll dig in a bit more on the upcoming schedule and some of these matchups and some of that stuff as we evaluate all of that ahead of next week. And we'll continue to keep an eye on some of these numbers, some of the things that are at this point rearing their ugly head as issues for Minnesota just 4 games into the season. That's all I got for you today. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. A reminder that for your second listen, you can go check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Show. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast out there, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This show is also part of that very same network, your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.